It started with the car wash. Not the scary part, that came later, but the whole thing. The reason we were even in Sedona in the first place was because of my girlfriend Chloe's obsession with keeping her Jeep Wrangler spotless. That we'd driven up from Phoenix for a long weekend, just to hike the Red Rocks and get some air. The Jeep was her baby, a shiny black thing she called Onyx, and after 2 days of desert trails, it was coated in a fine red dust. "It's in the vents, Mark, that I can smell the dirt," she'd said, wrinkling her perfect nose. That was Chloe. 26, a graphic designer who worked remotely, and she had this thing about order, about cleanliness. That IT was part of her allure, that sharp, controlled edge. She was sitting cross-legged on the hotel bed, her laptop balanced on her knees, Googling car washes in the area. The afternoon sun cut through the window and lit up her hair, a cascade of dark brown that fell over her shoulders. She was wearing a tight white tank top and those impossibly soft-looking yoga shorts, the kind that hug every curve. That I remember watching the way her lower back arched as she leaned forward, the delicate shift of her shoulder blades. That I had the stupid mundane thought that I wanted to run my thumb along the line of her spine, right there, from her neck down to where the shorts began. "Found one," she announced, snapping the laptop shut. "It's a few miles out on the way to Cottonwood. Looks old school, the kind with the big brushes." I groaned theatrically. "Those brushes are terrible for the paint, you know that they're full of other people's grit." She fixed me with those hazel eyes, a playful challenge in them. "It's this or we drive back to Phoenix with the windows up, and you get to listen to me complain about the dust smell for 3 hours, your choice." I knew which option I preferred. That I also knew I'd lose. "Fine. But if it swirls the clear coat, you're not allowed to blame me." She unfolded herself from the bed, a fluid, graceful motion that always caught my eye. Her legs were long and toned from all her hiking, and as she slipped on her sandals, I watched the delicate bones in her ankles shift under her skin. The straps of the sandals looked like they were biting gently into her flesh. For a second, I imagined undoing the buckles, feeling the warmth of her feet in my hands. That IT was a weirdly intimate thought for the middle of a lazy afternoon, and I felt a flush of heat. That had nothing to do with the Arizona sun. "Stop staring and get your shoes on," she said, but she was smiling, a slow, knowing curve of her lips. She loved it when I looked at her like that. That IT was a game we played. The car wash was exactly where she said it would be, tucked off the 89A on the outskirts of town. The place was called Red Rock Suds and Shine, and it looked like it had been built in the 70s and never updated. A low, cinder-block building housed the office, which was dark and had a flickering open sign in the window. The wash bay itself was a long, dark tunnel, its entrance a gaping maw of shadow. The giant rollers and brushes were visible just inside, looking like the skeletal remains of some prehistoric beast. The whole place was deserted. "Charming," I said, pulling the Jeep up to the self-service kiosk. "It has character," Chloe retorted, pulling a credit card from her wallet. Her fingers were slender, her nails painted a deep, glossy burgundy. That I watched her tap the card, the way her wrist bent. Everything about her was so precise. The machine whirred and spat out a ticket. "Super Deluxe Wash," it read. "With underbody rinse and triple coat wax. Go big or go home," I muttered, driving forward towards the tunnel entrance. The red and white warning light began to spin, and a robotic female voice crackled from a speaker. "Please drive forward. Stop when the light is green." I eased the Jeep into the darkness. The world outside vanished, replaced by the immediate claustrophobic roar of water. The first spray hit the windshield, a thick, foamy soap that was a garish electric blue. That IT coated the glass completely, turning the outside world into a swirling, opaque mess. "I always feel like I'm in a spaceship during this part," Chloe said, leaning her head back against the seat. She closed her eyes, a small smile on her face. The noise was deafening, a thrumming, pressurized beat that vibrated through the chassis. The big, cloth-covered rollers descended, slapping against the sides of the Jeep, rocking us gently. That I looked over at her. The dim, colored light from the wash cycle played over her features. The blue soap light made her skin look ethereal, almost alien. That IT highlighted the perfect line of her jaw, the full, soft shape of her lips. Her tank top was stretched taut across her chest, and with her arms relaxed at her sides, the position accentuated the curve of her breasts. That I felt a familiar low pull of desire, right there in the middle of the thundering, soapy chaos that it felt illicit, a secret hunger in a very public yet utterly isolated place. The rollers passed and we were hit with another spray, this one a clear rinse. The blue foam slid away in thick, goopy sheets. For a moment the glass was almost clear. And that's when I saw him. A man was standing just outside the tunnel, maybe 10 feet from the passenger side where Chloe was sitting. He was just standing there. Motionless. That he was tall and gaunt, dressed in a dark, heavy-looking coat that was all wrong for the Sedona heat. His hair was lank and pale, plastered to his forehead. But it was his posture that got me first. That he was perfectly still, his arms hanging limp at his sides, his head cocked at an angle that didn't look comfortable. That he was staring directly into the car, directly at Chloe. My breath hitched. Chloe? She murmured, eyes still closed. There's a guy out there. Her eyes snapped open. She followed my gaze, just as the next cycle began. A thick, white, wax-like substance that began to cover the glass, starting from the top and flowing down like a slow-moving waterfall. That I end the second before the window was completely obscured, our eyes met his. They were the palest blue I'd ever seen, almost colorless, and they held no expression, not curiosity, not menace, nothing, just a flat, empty gaze. Then the white foam covered him and he was gone. What the hell? Chloe said, sitting up straight. Was he watching us? I don't know. He was just standing there. We sat in silence for a moment, the only sound the hiss of the wax spray. The interior of the Jeep felt suddenly small, the air thick. Probably just an employee, she said, but her voice was tight. She was trying to sound dismissive, but I could see the tension in her neck, the way her fingers were gripping the edge of her seat. He wasn't dressed like an employee, I said. The coat? Who wears a wool coat in the desert? The final rinse cycle started. High-pressure jets of water blasted the wax away. We both watched the passenger window, waiting for it to clear, our hearts thumping a synchronized rhythm of dread. The water sluiced away, revealing the concrete bay and the bright Arizona day beyond. The man was gone. There was no one there. No sign he had ever been there. The spot where he'd been standing was just empty, wet concrete. See? Chloe said, forcing a laugh. It sounded brittle. He's gone. Just some weirdo. This place is probably a magnet for them. The green light at the end of the tunnel came on, and the robotic voice instructed us to please drive forward. I put the Jeep in gear and rolled slowly out into the blinding sunlight. The world felt too bright, too normal. I scanned the area. The dusty lot was empty except for a beat-up Ford pickup truck parked near the office. There was no sign of the tall, gaunt man. We pulled over into the vacuum area. I'll get the mats, I said, my voice sounding strangely normal. Chloe got out on her side, grabbing the handheld vacuum hose. I was shaking out the floor mats when I saw her freeze. She was staring at the passenger side window, her face pale. Mark. I walked over. The Jeep was still wet, beaded with clean water. But on the passenger window something was wrong. The soap and wax had been washed away, but a pattern remained. It wasn't a smear or a water spot. It was a shape. A detailed, milky white shape etched into the glass, as if the wax had somehow bonded to it in a specific, impossible formation. It was a perfect, anatomically correct image of a human skeleton. Not a cartoon skeleton. A medical illustration. We could see the intricate lattice of the ribs, the knobs of the spine, the ball and socket joints of the hips, the delicate bones of the fingers and toes. It was our skeleton, scaled to fit the window, as if we were looking at an X-ray of the person sitting in the passenger seat. Chloe was tracing the outline of the skull with a trembling finger, not touching the glass, just hovering an inch away. The skull was tilted at the exact same angle her head had been when she was leaning back against the headrest. What is this? She whispered. Her voice was thin, frayed. Some kind of prank? A sticker? I reached out and rubbed my thumb over the image of a rib. It didn't smudge. It wasn't a sticker. It was fused to the glass, a ghostly, permanent-looking scar. The detail was horrifying. I could see the individual vertebrae, the fine lines of the scapula. It's from the car wash, I said, the words feeling stupid and inadequate. The soap, it left this. That's not possible, she said, her voice rising. How could soap leave a picture of a skeleton? My skeleton. A shadow fell over us. We both jumped. The gaunt man was standing there, that he must have moved with an unnerving silence, that he was closer now, close enough that I could smell a strange odor coming from him. A mix of damp earth and something chemical, like formaldehyde. His pale eyes were fixed on the skeletal image on the window. Up close he was even more unsettling. His skin had a waxy yellowish tint, his dark coat was frayed at the cuffs and stained. That he wasn't old, maybe in his late 40s, but he looked used up. That he didn't look at us, that he stared at the skeleton on the glass. "It shows you what's underneath," he said. His voice was a dry rasp, like stones grinding together. That it held no inflection. Chloe took a step back, bumping into the side of the Jeep. "What did you do?" she demanded, her fear turning to anger. The man's eyes slowly swiveled from the window to her face. That flat, empty gaze traveled over her. Her wide eyes, her parted lips, down the line of her throat, over the swell of her chest under the white tank top. That it wasn't a look of lust, that it was a look of assessment. Like a geologist examining a rock sample. That I felt a surge of protective rage, hot and immediate. "It's not me," he rasped. "It's the water here, it remembers the bones." His eyes flicked back to the image on the window. "Yours are very clear, very defined." He took a step closer. That I moved between him and Chloe, my fists clenching. "Get away from us." He ignored me, his gaze still locked on Chloe over my shoulder. "You should see it when it's complete. The full picture. It's beautiful." Then he simply turned and walked away, around the corner of the cinderblock building. He didn't hurry, his footsteps made no sound on the gravel. We stood there, frozen, for a full minute. The only sound was the hum of the vacuum cleaner we'd left running. "We need to go," Chloe said, her voice trembling. "Right now?" "We didn't bother cleaning the inside of the car. We just threw the mats in the back and got in. I started the engine, my hands shaking on the wheel. As I pulled out of the lot, I glanced in the rearview mirror. The man was standing by the office door, watching us leave. He was just a dark, stick-figure silhouette against the bright red rock behind him. The drive back to the hotel was silent. Chloe hugged herself, staring out the window at the passing juniper trees and towering sandstone formations. The image of the skeleton was burned into my mind, the way the ribs curved, so perfectly mirroring the curve of Chloe's own torso that I had memorized through touch and sight. The thought made me feel sick. My attraction to her body, so vivid and physical just minutes before, now felt violated, tainted. That gaunt man's clinical stare had reduced her to a structure, a framework, and the car wash, a place of mundane cleanliness, had made that framework visible. When we got back to the room, the first thing Chloe did was head for the shower. I heard the water turn on, a hard, relentless spray. I sat on the edge of the bed, my mind racing. The water here remembers the bones? What the hell did that mean? Was he just a crazy person? But that image on the window, that wasn't the work of a crazy person, that was something else. I pulled out my phone. My search history was still open to the car wash. I opened a new tab and typed, "Red Rock Suds, and Shine Sedona Weird." Nothing. Sedona car wash skeleton. Nothing. Sedona local legends bones water. A few articles about vortexes and spiritual energy, but nothing about car washes. Frustrated, I opened my photo gallery. I'd taken a few pictures on our hike this morning. Chloe on Devil's Bridge, her arms outstretched, the vast canyon behind her. She looked vibrant, alive, her body a testament to health and strength. I zoomed in on the picture, on the line of her thigh where her hiking shorts ended, on the smooth, sun-kissed skin. A wave of that old desire mixed with a new, chilling revulsion. I was looking at the flesh, but all I could see was the ghostly white bone beneath. I heard the shower shut off. A few minutes later, Chloe emerged from the bathroom wrapped in a towel, her skin flushed and steaming. Droplets of water clung to her collarbones and the tops of her breasts. Her hair was a dark, wet tangle. She usually loved to parade around like this, teasing, knowing I was watching. Now she moved quickly, quietly, grabbing her clothes and avoiding my eyes.
"Feel better?" I asked. "No," she said, her back to me as she pulled on a fresh t-shirt. The towel dropped, and for a second, I saw the elegant line of her back, the gentle dip of her waist, the swell of her hips in a pair of simple cotton panties. My body reacted on instinct, a primal pull, but my mind recoiled. I pictured the spinal column from the car window, perfectly superimposed over her living skin. The juxtaposition was nauseating.
She turned around, finally looking at me. We have to get that off the car. I know that we can try a clay bar or some rubbing alcohol. No, Mark, that I mean now that I can't. I can't have that on my car, that I can't even look at it. So we went back down to the parking lot. The Jeep sat there, gleaming in the late afternoon sun. From the driver's side it looked normal. But as we walked around to the passenger side, the image came into view. It was even more stark and detailed in the direct sunlight. It looked less like a residue and more like something that had been etched into the molecular structure of the glass. I got my detailing kit from the back. I tried everything. Isopropyl alcohol, vinegar. A clay bar. A plastic razor blade. The image wouldn't budge. It was as permanent as a tattoo. I rubbed until my arm ached. The gritty sound of the clay bar the only noise between us. Chloe stood watching, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. Every time I glanced at her, I saw the skeleton behind her, a ghostly double. "It's not coming off," I finally said, defeated. She didn't reply. She was staring past me towards the road. I turned. 100 yards away, on the other side of the hotel's entrance, the gaunt man was standing under a pine tree, just standing watching. "He's here," she whispered, her voice thick with terror. We rushed back to the room, locking the door and latching the chain. I pulled the curtains shut. The room, which had felt so airy and open before, was now a claustrophobic box. "We should call the police," Chloe said, pulling out her phone. "And tell them what? That a car wash left a picture on our window and a weird guy is looking at us? They'll think we're on drugs." She knew I was right. She put the phone down, her shoulders slumping. We ordered room service and ate in silence, the food tasting like ash. The light faded outside. The room grew dark. We went to bed early, more for the illusion of safety than from any real tiredness. We lay side by side in the king-size bed, not touching. The space between us felt vast. I was hyper-aware of her body next to mine, the warmth radiating from her, the soft sound of her breathing. I wanted to pull her close, to feel the solid living reality of her against me, to prove to myself that she was more than the blueprint that was now scarred onto her car window. But I was.